Hello there, it's Josh here from Racing to Profit. I hope you can hear me. I'm recording this video at around 3:30 on Friday, the 7th of May. I hope you've had a good week and you have a great weekend ahead. In this video, I'm going to flick through the Victoria Cup from Ascot, a heritage handicap. I'm in the excellent Gigi's Gold. I may flick over to horse race base as well. I've got my blog here with some pointers, some kind of stats and trends and trainer pointers for the Victoria Cup, which you can use as you please. As always, there's the kind of sample size, and I use horse race base for this research. It looks at the last 12 renewals, and I flick through various different things and pull out anything I think is of potential interest for today's race and can make logical sense. Of course, they're always only ever a guide. They're meant to be informative, and you can see the sample sizes down here in the brackets and how I like to kind of write them up and can compare them to the overall sample size for the race, if you so wish to get a feel for the strength of a stat or not. And obviously you can look at those various different pointers and create a sort of winning profile, I suppose, if you wanted to. Whatever you want, really. And there's some other stats there in terms of odds and see different things there. And yeah, then there's some training pointers. Then I apply them and pick out what I like, and you can kind of see the profile there. This one is kind of 9 from 12 winners, so may well not be covered. But in terms of 9 from 94 runners, is pretty decent against the overall sample size of 310. So not too bad. And if they uphold the winner, may well be in this list here somewhere. There's usually a kind of good each way horse lurking somewhere within the trends short list, long list, or within the trainer pointers, and that's the final bit down here. Our trainers too have won the race previously in the last 12 years, and with runners in this year's renewal. And obviously many trainers are creatures of habit, and if they get in the habit of winning certain races and big handicaps, they can like to target that race with similar horses moving forward. So those runners are always worth some kind of look as well. Obviously what we're talking about here is, well, these are the most competitive handicaps you get on the flat. I wouldn't be one to dive into them too seriously. I've kind of tried to do that in the past, maybe. I mean, they're just bloody difficult. They're meant to be. And there's something, I suppose, satisfying when you're right and you solve that puzzle, but it's hard. And I suppose these sorts of races, if you so wish, for a bit of entertainment on a Saturday afternoon, to throw a couple of quid at of interest change each way, if you so want. Most of them will end up having big place concessions, 5 places or 6 places, and a bit of fun. What I'm going to do, obviously, is just flick through a few things that you can note down if you want. As always, I try and make these videos informative both for this race now and for the future moving forward, whether or not that's in the coming days, weeks, different things you may want to note down to use in your punting armory. Within GGs, these green symbols usually mean that's a positive. So a 14 and a 30 means the trainer or the jockey is in form in the last 14 days or the last 30 days. The C one means a jockey's got a good record at the course in the last year. The C5 under Jamie Osborne, you can see there, a good record in the last 5 years. So there's different things you can pick up there. Obviously, jockeys riding with confidence is never a bad thing, and trainers being in form is never a bad thing. That doesn't necessarily mean those trainers without a green symbol are out of form. It just means these particular trainers, their strings are going fairly well. And you know, using trainer form and those trainers in good form as a kind of starting point or way in is never a bad thing in little blocks or through a week into racing to create shortlists, etc., etc. So you can kind of look down there and note down what you want, I suppose, from trainers in form. I don't need to touch on all of those because you can see. I suppose we can highlight a few of them. Andrew Balding, there's a percentage of rivals beaten figure down here, which is useful. Anything over 0.5 is generally a positive, and the closer to kind of 1, the better. Obviously, there's course records and other different things. There's these kind of report angles the last couple of years. Saffie Osborne is a jockey to watch. Jamie Osborne's daughter looks plenty of value for her £7. You can see her stats in the last 2 weeks. She's having a flying time. and pretty profitable as well to starting price. All the figures are looking good, so her rides are worth noting more generally, not necessarily for today, but I suppose I should say, as I'm on Raising Sand, the rain could come. They are scheduled or forecast, I should say, plenty at Ascot. It may be best assuming the ground is going to be soft and maybe ride even softer. Henry Candy's not in bad form either, 3 from 8, 5 places the last 14 days. That's decent for his yard, so his runners may be worth an eye on. There's a few head-to-head stats. Of course, when you get to competitive handicaps like this, especially straight tracks or up to a mile, and the sprinter distance is kind of 5 to 7 furlongs, lots of these horses, especially the 4-year-old plus, they face each other numerous times throughout the season, and it can be a case of trying to land on them at the right time. Charlie Fellows are going okay. Jamie Spencer isn't everyone's cup of tea, but all of his rides on the Ascot straight course, especially 8 furlongs, but even 7, 5 through to 8 furlongs on the Ascot straight course should be noted and should be looked at, because you can make, kind of last 5-6 years, plenty of money backing them blind. And I did just want to see if he's got anything else at Ascot. I'm not 100% sure on those distances, but check and see if any of these others are over the straight track on Saturday. I've got a feeling Perfect Inch maybe, and that might be 8 furlongs, so he could be interesting. But Jamie Spencer's rides are worth a look on the Ascot straight course, mainly because plenty of people can go too hard at the front, and his more patient style switches horses off and gets them doing their best work in the final furlong. Which obviously works when there is a ultra strong pace on, and I'll touch on the pace maps in a minute. David Manoussier is in fine form, as you can see there. What else? There's some report angles here. He does very well with his turf runners in the last couple of years. In general, using him as a trainer, as a way in, never a bad idea either. So on and so forth. Rafe Beckett continues in decent form, although you have to pick and choose. Plenty of them do get well backed. He doesn't exactly have a great record at Ascot, but of course, when looking at track records, a bit like over jumps with Cheltenham and with Ascot, they cover 2 big competitive festivals, and the racing is usually ultra competitive at Ascot, so not being overly harsh on trainer records at a track like this isn't a bad thing. And everything has a price, of course. Hugo Palmer, he's in decent form, as you can see there. So is Tom Marquand. Interesting when teaming up with Palmer in the last year, 4 from 18, 9 places. That might be worth noting down. Tom's riding very well. His kind of win percentages far above his 365-day record. I'm sure he won't keep up 26% all season, but he'll be trying to keep up there. Archie Watson's in form, as we can see here. 63% rivals beaten, not too bad at all. Holly's on Harrison Point. We've got James Tate here. He's also in form. He doesn't have many kind of stable switches, but he's won from 7-3 places for those that he gets from different yards. What else do I want to say? Roger Varian continues in good form. We saw that he won this race, has won this race previously. His are going well as well, so anything he runs. Ray Dawson's riding well and is probably worth a fair bit for his claim. His record at the track at Ascot in the last year is pretty good, so he might be a £3 claimer to keep an eye on in the kind of coming days and weeks, and he's certainly been having a good time of it in the last 2 weeks. And yes, so that's that. That's the race card in that sense. There's these speed ratings down here, which can be useful to a point, though, but only ever a guide. I can't fit the whole race card on one page, given there are so many runners. So obviously you can pause this video and do what you want with it, but there's different things you can say there. If I click on the Instant Expert, what we're going to do is here. So this is good to soft. This is all code. Let me just put flat and all weather, all, and you can see the kind of green's good, orange amber's good, and again you can kind of pause that where you want. That's for winning forming conditions. Now I can change the going. Let's assume a lot of rain falls, which is not impossible, and if we go through soft through to heavy and we want winning form Well, Raising Sand likes it soft, but you can see winning form on soft through the heavy. If a horse has done something twice or more, that's always a good sign. So Greenside clearly has no problems with conditions, cold stare, zip. So you can see there. So obviously the going is one element. We can put it on the place. So that's the win record. We can look at the place stats. And again, Greenside 4 from 8. You can see those ones that have multiple kind of win and places on soft through to heavy. Ascot could get 13 to 15 mil of rain. Of course, you can then look across to course records, which is never a bad place to focus either, especially somewhere at Ascot. Sunset Breeze, second in the 7 furlong here on good. So you can kind of click down and see the different things there. Greenside's record in 7, in some decent handicaps, all class 2 deep. Ascot, second there, win at Haydock. He probably needs it. I might touch on him in a minute, actually, but he's still £2 above his last winning mark. Then we've got marks. If I click on handicaps, so we can see form in handicaps, obviously horses can get away with different conditions when they're younger in maiden or novice races because their class can get them through. So a horse might have done really well on soft or heavy in a maiden, but be all at sea in a competitive handicap on such a going, depending on how they're developed. As an aside, so obviously looking at proven handicap form, but as we can see by some of the trends for the Victoria Cup as you flick through, if you so wish, this race generally goes to those kind of at the more unexposed end of the scale, with kind of fewer wins in handicaps. But if you were, wanted big price each way horses who are kind of proven in conditions, big weights generally haven't done well in this, but Greenside clearly ticks a lot of boxes in terms of going, class, course, distance, field size. Again, having the ability to handle 16 plus runner fields and the ability to settle, travel at that relentless pace and still have something at the end is a kind of specialist trait in itself. So you can stare and pause and look at this screen for win and place. Queso, obviously, and horses that place and do well at Ascot, you would think their connections would kind of pick out races for them and decent pots like this back here. So Queso's interesting. Greenside, when you're just looking from a kind of each way who's kind of suited and proven in conditions, but of course there could be something which is unproven in conditions and relishes them that steps forward. We've got handicap marks down here on the right hand side, so a minus means they're above their last winning mark. So Greenside's £2 above his last winning mark, which was 98. You do have to sometimes go through and check whether or not they were kind of handicaps and various different things, but you can get a feel. Tinto's £3 below his last winning mark, so on and so forth. And you can look through and make a judgment and pick and choose what you want from that screen in front of you. So that's that. What am I going to finish on? Well, touch on, I should say. I'll look at pace. Here we've got the pace map. I can't get it all on one screen. Let's sort it by draw. One's going to be, as we're looking on the TV screen across the track, one is going to be on the far side against the inside rail. 29's kind of under this stand side rail, if that makes sense. We can kind of see, there's not necessarily loads of pace, so I can click this. This is not by draw, so this is just how they may run. So Marshall Dan may go forward, Jack's Point, full authority. There's not loads and loads of kind of front runners on paper. Now sometimes I think that in a race like this and a load of them end up kind of blasting out and kind of making all anyway, and this is early in the season. Some of these connections may want to get a handicap mark down. The way to do that legitimately, I suppose, is to you can go too hard on the front end and then you fade backwards through the field, especially if it's on soft or heavy ground, which they may not like. So it could be that you never fully know how a race like this will be run, but a case could be made that you do not necessarily want to be back here because you need them to go far too hard up front and fall in a hole. So the likes of Harrison Point, who'll race prominently, he might be in a good spot if Holly can get him out and get him settled. Who else have we got here? Queso may not be too far away. Acquitted, they're the kind of mid-div to prominent through. And then we get some of these going a bit further back. Let me sort that by, you can just pause that and look at that pace map, I suppose, if you want, and then track across to where they're drawn. If we, look at the draw, it has tended to favour, in soft. Well, let me just change this to good through to soft, so I can change the ground. And you can see where the kind of orange and reds, it's fairly even in fairness. These down here on the low numbers across the far side of the track will want Marshall Dan to go hard, but Queso may be up there. Woolhan and Hayley Turner may want these to go hard as well to kind of drag them into it, but she's got a little bit of pace here. Holly in the mid division, she's going to have a choice. She can go low or go high, so depending on how she wants to play that gives her options. As you can see different things here. Greenside can race up there as well. So they're different elements of the pace map, which you can look at and use however you please. But yeah, on paper it doesn't look like it will be frenetic, famous last words, and it may pay to be not too far back. Whether or not that pans out like that, that's what this pace map is suggesting, but time will tell. What do I want to finish on? I'm ticking around to 16 minutes. As always, hopefully I'm saying something of interest. I mean, obviously you can flick through these different horses if you wanted here. I suppose I could look at a few of them. Greenside is interesting. He's obviously exposed. He's open to attack from anything with more in hand. He has generally run well on his first start after a break and seasonal return to suggest that he's fit enough, actually. For all that, if you look at this, so second start of the season he won that year. 2019 last season, second start he won. 2 years ago, last season, second start he won. So note Greenside down. He might, obviously he's not getting any younger, he's 10 now. You would think there are going to be younger legs will have him here and better handicap horses. But if the rain does pour down and this becomes properly soft, he does stay 8 furlongs. He likes Ascot. He handles it deep and he stays well, and Candy will have got him fairly fit, I should think. So, when conditions go a bit bog-like, if indeed that does happen, I suppose strange things can happen. And he does hit the trends profile, even though he's 10, and he'll probably be, I think he might be 20, 25, so that's an option. I don't want to say anything to lean you one way or the other necessarily, because this is just a quick look through, and certainly not to say anything to put you off a horse, which is never the point. Queso, interesting, I suppose, just because of his course form. Again, fairly exposed. Well, I should say open to attack from something which is more, hasn't won as many handicaps and may still be working their way up the ladder. But when you look at some of this form in big field Ascot handicaps, a third there, a second there. He does like this 7 furlongs, although obviously last season, he's quite lightly raced in the last couple of years. That may suggest he's got problems and he's on the downgrade. And I suppose he hasn't shown much since July 19. So I suppose he's got a little bit of a question now. He could just be regressing. He's had a hard career and run lots of massive races. Proper soft ground is probably a question for him, isn't it? Some of his best efforts are on good, so maybe not him, but we shall see. I'm just trying to focus on the shortlisted ones. Acquitted, thoroughly unexposed. He's got a question. Lots of his best form, just looking there, is on flatter tracks. Doncaster, Newbury. Clearly, heavy ground wasn't the problem in his kind of novice days. Maybe a return to this ground will see him run to his best. He's run here once, Royal Ascot last year, and didn't do very well at all, but maybe had excuses, trapped wide. But that raises a question for him. Doncaster as a kind of setup track and racing there last time out hasn't been a good guide to this race since 1997, actually. It's about 0 from 39. That can mean nothing. I'm trying to think of the logic for that. I'm not quite sure. But he did run very well. And if you look, he got close to Palace Pier. He's now a Group 1 horse for John Gosden. That was in June last year. This Doncaster Spring Mile, I think, has thrown up a few winners since that were in and around him. As we can see here, lots of his races have produced subsequent winners. A 98 Racing Post rating last time out. That was a career best. So Now he races prominently, and I think, well, on that evidence, handled heavy, but whether or not he will in a competitive handicap like this, I'm not sure. But he can race prominently. He comes in form. He's 4. There is more to come from him. Whether or not it's in these conditions, we shall see. I think he's about 8-1 kind of favourite. Harrison Point under Holly is interesting. Lightly raced, definitely more to come. Has won on soft Beverley, as you can see there. Air got good form there. Won over 8 furlongs here. Weakened over one furlong out. That may have been the trip. It may have been needing the run a tad. Got subtle form, which is never a bad kind of indication of stamina as such, not on the old surface anyway, which they're now changing. Comes here after 2 runs, fit. And given the yard form, place on my shortlist. Harrison Point may be worth a closer look, and possibly, I'm not sure if he's going to be an each way price, we shall see. But that might be one that's worth an interest. It might be worth going to watch back that Ascot 8 furlong race, which I'm yet to do. This James Tate horse who's left Ian Williams, still a maiden, which is a concern. I've no idea if he's going to be fit or tuned up for this. That is an educated guessing game, or complete guessing game, unless the trainer said anything. Soft ground is a question, but he's got course form, 2 decent runs in okay handicaps here, nothing quite as deep as this as such. But he did shape from memory at times last season as if he may have an okay handicap in him. Maybe James Tate can find the key. Still a kind of lightly raced horse for age 5, and in the last 5 years, he's yet to win. So he's got a question, but anything with Ascot form, always of some mild interest, I suppose. Jumeirah Bay for Roger Varian, who's in flying form, and he's won the race before. He maybe doesn't win as often as he should. He's probably one you'd want to back each way. Again, he handled heavy there. He just does find ways to get beaten, but maybe this big field, some of that York effort was decent, although a class 4 one that's worked out very well. Some of these efforts are decent, but he does need more. But maybe this bigger field is a year older, the yard are flying, right end of the weights. Varian knows the type that's needed to win this race, so he would be interesting. There's possibly, we shall see if there are any winners on this shortlist, but certainly acquitted Jumeirah Bay. You can look at a couple of the others. I thought Harrison Point is potential interest, as is Greenside, but he's a bit older and a bit more exposed, but there's something of interest there. Anyway, I've been going on long enough. Hopefully I have said something of interest within this race, and it may help you land on a decent each way winner or placed horse or something else. But with that said, thanks for watching. Until next time, this is Josh saying bye for now.